Look, I'm going to sit here and tell you that not every decision that was made, even by the Warriors late, was the right decision. But I think they didn't get the benefit of a couple of calls late. There was a deflection and what led to a steal by Fred VanVleet. And if you watch the replay, there was a foul called on Steph Curry where VanVleet not only stole the ball, ran through a pass, but then he pushed Curry to try and go get the ball, and they called a foul on Curry. Curry had the ball late. You're up a bucket, and the Raptors fouled him. There was no foul being called. He finds a way to get it to Livingston, who comes to the basketball and just barely takes it away from the claws of Kawhi Leonard. Passes it to Andre Iguodala, who didn't have to shoot with that much time on the clock, but he did, and he makes the dagger three, and the Warriors tie the series at 1 apiece. Like, we could get into the little things within the series, but here's my biggest and most important takeaway, and this is really, really important. Okay? This is really, really important. If you watched that game and you realized just how much better the Warriors were in the second half, are we ever going to say anything other than, man, Steph was great in the third quarter? He was bad to start the game, and he was great in the second quarter, and then the third quarter, they kind of figured some stuff out. Has there ever been a human being in charge of a team who's gotten less credit, respect, adulation, or discussion than Steve Kerr? Guys, I watched the same game you did. And I will granted, and this like, if you don't know me, they may sound like a DB thing to say, but I have a higher basketball acumen than most of you. So you may not have come away with the same thought that I did, which is that was a coaching mismatch, and the adjustments that the Warriors made, the substitution pattern and rotation and plugging holes when you don't have your best player and you didn't have your best defender for a good portion of the game, who's your second best player currently on the roster or currently playing. Like, that was amazing. And at least a good portion of it was coaching. Has there ever been anybody who gets less discussion than Steve Kerr? Right? The Raptors didn't score their first basket until 6:20 remaining in the third quarter. I'm willing to admit that the Warriors not making shots in the first half, having to adjust, and then Steph finally hitting some shots in the first half, they were feeling better. Some of it is on the players, but we don't give anything to the adjustments that were made at halftime and the coaching moves? Like, think about that for a second. That's all kinds of crazy. And by the way, they won in spite of the fact that Andre Iguodala's three-point shot, which was a little bit early on the clock, was the only shot the Warriors made in the last 5:39 of the game. They won that game because of the adjustments they made at the defensive end of the floor. And some of the adjustments they made offensively to the varying defenses of the Raptors, and some of it did, and some of it did not work. You didn't have Clay late. You didn't have KD. Even the decision to start DeMarcus Cousins last game and play him more minutes than his play probably earned might have been what won them the game, because DeMarcus Cousins had a huge impact on the game. Late, he was gassed and he couldn't really help you. But he was able to give them some offense, which they so desperately needed, especially when Klay Thompson was out. And that is coaching. Adjustments are coaching. Sticking together when things are bad is coaching. Spreading out a team and reading their defense, coaching. Figuring out the problem and finding a solution at halftime is coaching. I get it. Luke Walton had a great. This is no different than the with KD, without KD, without Steph. This is no different than that discussion. You can show me the record of Luke Walton and these Warriors, and I can tell you that doesn't mean anything to me. That was a different time. It was an important time where this team was just light years better than everybody they're playing. Plus, it's regular season basketball, which nobody really cares about. And in the postseason is about matchups and adjustments. And then, of course, you got to make some shots. And in spite of the fact they didn't make any shots over the last 5.5 minutes of the game, they still won on the road without Kevin Durant, without Klay Thompson. And I don't hear anyone saying, Steve Kerr's kind of awesome. Kind of awesome. We do this thing with Phil Jackson. We're like, no, Phil Jackson always had the two best players. Like, okay. Jordan didn't win a championship before he got there. Pippen when Jordan were there. Kobe and Shaq didn't win anything until he got there. And then when he left, he didn't win anything. When he came back, they won again. It's weird how that works. Strange. The adjustments he made were magnificent. He made Draymond Green into kind of like a free safety. He took Steph some and put him into ball screens and changed the spacing, set some back screens, got some layups, changed what they were doing, and the Raptors didn't even know what hit them. You had an inexperienced coach versus an experienced head coach. And look, I'm actually personally friends with Nick Nurse. I played for Nick Nurse in the USBL. I've known him for almost 20 years. And he does have experience as a head coach overseas in the G League. But in the NBA, in the playoffs, that sucks. Life comes at you really, really fast. And there is a reason that it's the same as coaching is a little bit like two things. A little bit like refereeing, and it's a little bit like what's called a 50-50 ball. Refereeing from this perspective. Like the greatest coaches are the ones where you almost don't know they're there. Don't get me wrong. Steve Kerr, could not have made Sean Livingston go and catch that ball and pass to Andre Iguodala, and he could not have made Andre Iguodala shoot that last shot. But the reason that they had the spacing that they had, the reason that they were in the places that they were, it's like this, like people are, well, wow, Steph really comes down, he looks to shoot, then he passes, then he becomes an off guard, and they set, like, all of this stuff is planned out. In football, we give all the credit in the world to Bill Belichick. We don't do any of it in basketball, it feels like. They're just a well-oiled machine. Why do you think they're a well-oiled machine? They're not just out there winging it. They're like, we just go up there and wing it. No. I mean, Steve Kerr even told you after last game, hey, we don't see him very much. And now that we've seen him, we got kind of a book on him. We'll make some adjustments. And they did. Here's Zaza Pachulia, who has been their starting center the last 2 years. He joined us Friday on the show. I asked him, Steph is amazing, but doesn't strike me as a true vocal leader. KD doesn't strike me as a true vocal leader. Draymond strikes me as a talker, but maybe not a leader. Who's the actual leader that makes this thing work?
I would say Steve Kerr. That's the guy who motivates everybody and, who makes sure everybody's on the board. Obviously, you have the players like, Steph and KD and Klay and Draymond who are playing big minutes. Steve does such a great job to get the guys motivated and ready and physically and mentally. So I would say Steve is the guy who keeps everybody together.
So he keeps everybody together, right? He keeps everybody together. He puts them in the right places. They play through DeMarcus Cousins. They change what they're doing. Remember, people talk about Golden State with the high ball screens. I don't know how many of you know this. The Golden State Warriors set the fewest number of ball screens of any team in the league. But they changed that last night. Why? Because you take what the defense gives you. Steve Kerr is maybe the best coach I've ever seen. He doesn't overreact to negativity. He knows how to motivate different guys differently. And by the way, nothing gets by him. Maybe it helps that he's been a broadcaster, a player, a bench player, a starting player on championship teams, a general manager, and he's been outside of basketball. But whatever it is, I'm blown away by the adjustments, by the team's ability to kind of put a finger in the dike as it looks like it's all going to implode. You're playing on the road against a really good team that has a ton of self-confidence. You're down big in the first half. You're having to play bench players you never thought you'd play at this particular point. You've only played DeMarcus Cousins one time since he hurt his quad muscle. And at halftime, you make defensive adjustments where the team can't score for the first half of the third quarter, and you go on this incredible run to where now they're fighting an uphill battle. If you don't think coaching plays at least a substantial portion in what the Warriors have done over the past 5 years, you're contradicting everything we know about sports.